Let's talk the new GTR X 300 and why it could actually be the ski for you to be on if you're talking new gen, and the perfect ski to bridge the gap until we get that Spark X. Hit the subscribe button, let's get into the video. So guys, this video is going to cover three key things. Number one, what is the GTR X 300? I know the codes can get quite confusing. Number two, why the GTR X 300, you can hear me say that a lot, is actually a relevant ski for all of us lightweight, playful riders. And why that GTR X, third time is saying it, could actually be kind of like a bridging ski, as in hit a certain criteria if you're waiting for that long overdue, faster Seadoo Spark, what a lot of people call the Spark X. So for 2024, Seadoo have introduced a faster variation of what's called the GTR. They've coined it the GTR X. Now for context, if you look at the Seadoo lineup, we obviously have the Seadoo Spark, which if you're like myself and lots of the enthusiasts that came from the 90s of riding playful lightweight skis, the GTI, which is the next step up ski from the Spark, runs what's called a Polytec 2-hole. Now the Polytec 2-hole does actually retain a lot of the playful characteristics that you'd want in your ride. Obviously it is a bigger ski inherently, but if you're not getting enough power from the Seadoo Spark, with that 90 horsepower 900 ace, then you step up to the 1630 power plant. Ultimately, the 1630 engine is the same engine, albeit with the GTI. You either have the 130 or the 170 naturally aspirated. And then when you start to get to the superchargers, previously it would have been called the GTR 230, I believe, which would have been a supercharger variant. But now, because we're seeing Seadoo push the super high performance crafts to 325, we're finally seeing a 300 horsepower variant of that GTR, hence the GTR X. What that means ultimately is you're getting a playful hull with more power. Why that's ultimately potentially a game changer for Seadoo is at the moment, a lot of the Seadoo Spark riders complain that to step up to a GTI, you not only sacrifice size, as in connection with the water, playful characteristics, but you're only getting, relatively speaking, sort of 5 miles an hour extra speed. The top speed of the GTI, the 170 at the moment, and I can vouch for this because I've rode it, is sort of like 55 miles an hour. Now to give you context, I can outrun that quite easily on a GSX 1999 Limited 951 or an XP 951. I think I could even give it a run for its money with my X4 for the first sort of 10 miles an hour. Obviously the top end would outperform, but the point I'm getting at here is, why would you sacrifice jumping from a Seadoo Spark to a GTI when inherently it's not going to be as playful and it's not a huge top end increase, and 1,000,000% the acceleration is not going to be as fast as a Spark? Cue the GTR X. A GTR X is obviously going to do 70 miles an hour out of the box. Now that is a huge step change in terms of what you would have experienced from the 230 and the GTI. Now some of you new gen guys will probably be saying, yeah, but Joe, we had the 230 GTR, which gave us 60 miles an hour previously, or 65 some claim. I don't know if I believe in those stats, because for me, superchargers, in my personal opinion, I know it's a tricky debate, but I don't think that they come into their own until that sort of like 25 to 40 miles an hour range. Two-stroke power out of the gate is obviously that exhilarating power band. The Spark does a great job, but inherently when you go to supercharged power, you're basically buying into that top end continue to pull as you get into the higher speed range. So for the 230 for me, again, it's a middle ground ski. You've got the GTI, which I'd probably pick over the 230 because it's naturally aspirated, and for me the power band is more linear than the actual supercharger. So with the introduction of the 300, there is no longer a debate around the performance curve that you're going to get out of that. It will be a 70 miles an hour ski out of the box. Okay, so I know what you're all thinking. Joe, this is a complete exit from lightweight, playful fun, which we all endorse. Anyone at least follows this channel is probably here because you love two strokes. We endorse small skis. We endorse skis that have connection with the water. We endorse skis that have great power to weight ratio. Any new gen ski, sorry to put a pin in the balloon or the bubble, what's the saying? The landscape of all skis in 2024 is that to get more power and speed, you have to increase size of craft. Seadoo will always argue that that is a necessary compromise for overall rider compliance. Rider compliance, in my opinion, is a separate topic, as in, is rider compliance as in a ski does what you want it to do effortlessly without massive amounts of skill to ride. But in essence, Seadoo's argument is if you have 300 horsepower, 70 miles an hour, you shouldn't have like a Seadoo Spark or a X4 or a parabolic V style hull, because inherently it's going to take a lot of skill to ride correctly. And I do kind of get that, but my argument has always been, I've endorsed the Seadoo Spark, as many old fan two-stroke riders will have, to try and bridge the gap between riding something new and something old. And the issue with the Seadoo Spark at the moment is once you get past that initial 30 miles an hour pull, it starts to struggle. And by the time you're at 50 miles an hour, it really is predicated on glass, super smooth. Now the argument for some people is you can mod the Spark, but in essence, if you spend £5,000 modding it with things like a remap, a new impeller, a ribbon delete, all of the sort of things that you can do to a Spark, you're still only going to see 3 miles an hour increase, which just doesn't make monetary sense when you can pick an old 951 up for anything as little as sort of £2,000, subject to what sort of work you want to do on them. So at the moment, although the Seadoo Spark represents lightweight, playful fun, which is what we all look for in a craft, it is inherently massively underpowered if you're coming from the two-stroke era or you're more inclined to ride a ski for connection to the water. So the relevance, I hear you ask, as to why the GTR X 300 is potentially a good ski to get on until we see a faster Seadoo Spark, is it's going to be playful, it's going to give you true performance in terms of 70 miles an hour is a 10 miles an hour easy jump between a two-stroke and a four-stroke. And in my opinion, 60 miles an hour is a good speed, top speed of a ski, any ski in my opinion. So anytime you're going 70 miles an hour, it is a big jump. And I know that old fans will refute that and say that you can get an X4 to go 70 miles an hour, but I'm talking about out-of-the-box performance. As you know, this is a pretty OEM-focused channel. A 951 out of the box will do 63 miles an hour pretty effortlessly. So in my opinion, a GTR X 300 is going to do 70 miles an hour pretty effortlessly. Let's be optimistic, that's 7 miles an hour minimum. As I've said, you're going to mod that and make it faster. And having rode a GTI, if you haven't been on a playful Polytec 2 hull, the GTI, it will actually impress you. I was one of those people that was in the camp of, no, it's too big, it's not going to be fun. I immediately jumped on it and I was flicking it around, doing 360s. It actually had that ability to emulate some of the old characteristics of the old two-strokes. I'm not saying it's ever going to be as connected, but it does a good job for a bigger hull. Some of the other benefits that I know I don't talk about an awful lot on this channel, one of the main reasons me and Megs endorsed and bought a Seadoo Spark was, as much as we love the two-strokes, increasingly me and Megs want to go exploring, we want to go a little bit further afield. We don't always want to take the two-strokes and put the hours on them. I have pristine examples, and as you know with this channel, one of the reasons why I have so many two-strokes is so I can rotate them and keep them in pristine condition. So the merit in new gen, you may be asking as to why I'm making this video, is the new gen can bridge the gap as to your workhorse ski, if that makes sense, as in the ski you go to every single weekend to put hours and hours and hours on it. It's going to be covered by warranty. You've got that four-stroke on the button reliability, as much as I hate to admit it, and it's going to keep your two strokes there for those playful occasions when you go out to the lake, you're obviously racing around the course, which in my opinion, nothing quite matches that, or if you want to go wave jumping or have a little blast, it balances out the arsenal in your garage. So for me at the moment, although Seadoo have obviously introduced the new Seadoo Spark for 2024 with that top deck redesign and some new cool mods and cons, it's not a performance increase. I know some people will say the tricks mode is a performance increase, but in essence, from the early tests we've seen online, it's essentially going to be a remapped variation of a new tricks mode. So what that will basically mean is you've got your standard mode, you've got your sport mode, and you've got that tricks mode. Now, tricks mode is going to give you more punch out of the water, but it's not going to give you more top end, which we're all searching for. So Seadoo spec sheet at the moment says the new Seadoo Spark still does 50 miles an hour. That for me is still too slow. It's a 10 mile an hour discrepancy between the skis that I'm familiar riding in the old gen. So ultimately, there still isn't a small lightweight ski in the lineup that will give me the power to truly be satisfied new gen. Ultimately, as much as I love my Seadoo Spark, once I'm done doing tail stands, wave jumping it, blitzing along and doing some spins, I am searching for more speed. Me and Megs have a consistent argument about her saying 50 miles an hour is fast enough, Joe, and I'm saying, you can just feel it. If you're honest to yourself as a Seadoo, Spark rider, you can feel the difference inherently. I always cite the 951, although people historically like the 787 in the X4, because the 951 was truly out of the box 63 miles an hour, whereas the X4, even with the 787, needed to be modded to get to that speed consistently. And my argument always with modding skis is it's great if you're into the race series, but if you're looking for a ski with longevity, typically Seadoo out of the box, if you started to push those engines, that's when the longevity started to reduce. So fundamentally, I think a 951 to this day, which is a bold statement, can hold its own. I was literally out racing a GTI 170, naturally aspirated, and it was faster. I'm not saying it was exponentially faster, because you're always going to have a more linear power band on a new ski, but it pulled. It pulls still to this day as well as that ski. Now I know some people will say, well, yeah, but you were racing a GTI, but a GTI is still a 170 horsepower ski versus a 951 130 horsepower ski. So that shows you the two-stroke power we're seeing. So what are some of the other reasons to consider a GTR X 300 versus holding out for a Seadoo Spark X? Well, we have to address the elephant in the room. No one truly knows right now the way that Seadoo, if they were even to do it, would achieve a faster spark. They could go down the turbo route, they could lean on some of their snowmobile engine setups, but fundamentally, although you can do something, it doesn't always make it right. We see this historically with a lot of the two-stroke engines. They get shoehorned into smaller crafts like the 951s going into the HXs, and although it gives you insane power, you start to sacrifice some of that balancing point of the way the characteristics of the ski behaves. The Spark at the moment, as much as I want more top end, is a very, very well optimized ski in terms of the way it handles, the way it feels, the balancing of it. So if you were to put a 1630, which is what everyone cries out for, it probably is too big of a block to sort of put into that ski. So a GTR X 300 maybe is the most playful, powerful ski in Seadoo's lineup if you truly want to go new gen and you actually want an engine that was designed to go into a hole. Ultimately, as much as there's not tons and tons of information comparing the two online, the Seadoo Spark hull, which is just called the Spark hull, so I always call it Polytec 1, is thinner than Polytec 2. It also lacks those fiberglass stringers which reinforce the actual hull. So it's not just as simple as putting a bigger engine in a Spark to give you more performance. They would have to re-engineer that hull to make it stronger. Would it then get heavier? That coupled with the engine being bigger inherently, would you sacrifice the characteristics of the ski? I've covered this in another video, so watch that one here. But in essence, a GTR X 300 out of the box is just designed to do that job. The other thing to consider is if you're in the camp of new gen wanting 70 miles an hour true performance, you maybe want to race along and stay with your new gen friends, which is another argument of two-stroke versus new gen, something I've fallen into. My dad's recently purchased the RXTX RS 300. The codes, honestly guys, I preferred it when it was XP, GSX, separate topic. But I do find myself struggling to stay with him because he is obviously achieving 70 miles an hour effortlessly. So if you have friends that are in the ST3, as in three-seater camp, or the T3 RXP camp, and you want to stay with those guys, the GTR X, at least speed-wise, is going to stay with those. I'm not saying if you were going around a course and you were truly trying to stay with a T3 hull, you're going to struggle because the GTR is designed to inherently be more playful and squirrely, and it's going to spin out more. It's not going to do things as precisely, getting into compliance again. But that being said, when your buddies are fed up of just going in a straight line and going around a course really fast and they want to do some donuts, a T3 hull is not going to let you do that because of the compliance again. And you're not going to have as much fun on those lake ride days where you're doing donuts and you're falling off. For me, a large part of why I ride is the smile factor. You know, you're doing donuts. You either know or you don't know. Donuts are one of those things where they just make you smile. And when you fall off and you climb back on a summer's day and you keep doing that, that is something for me that I miss. I've spent literally 20 minutes on my dad's ST3 hull trying everything I could to get that ski to really just let the ass go and fling round. And it's just so compliant. It's great if you're racing it fast and going through the chop, but if you want playfulness, it's so frustrating because you're yearning for more playful characteristics. So the GTR is going to do that out of the box. It's always going to be too big, in my opinion. It's always never going to be as playful because I like skis that you step on. I've got a fantastic analogy for you guys to sort of sign off this video with. If I take this good old can of GT85 and we call this the jet ski, although some people don't like me calling Seadoo's jet skis, PWCs, put in the comments if you call a jet ski, or if you say I'm going PWCing. I think we know it's jet skiing. The GT85 cam represents a jet ski, and then if we take these placemats, don't tell Megan that I've taken her placemats for this analogy. This is a two-stroke, a parabolic V, an X4, or a playful characteristic hull, Spark even. And this is a Polytec 2 hull, or an ST3 hull, or a T3 hull. You can see the size difference, which obviously represents literally the size difference. But if I was to take, push that out of the way, this, and I was to take this represents the connection. I mean, you can see with the water, that necessity to adjust your center of gravity. If I was to take this represents a big ski. So although you still have those characteristics, you're inherently much more disconnected to the water because your platform is that much bigger. So most of your time, you're finding you're having to go near the extremities of the ski to do it what you want it to do, versus on a two-stroke, as soon as you do anything, we get that playful, inherent, spin-out characteristics. Now, I'm not saying for everyone they want that. Some people want compliance in their ride. Some people want the ski to do this over and over again, predictably. But as you know, from a two-stroke perspective, or anyone that's coming from two-stroke through, the Spark is called the entry-level budget ski, but it's far from it. And I think that's the frustration for most people. There is a lot of riders out there, Seadoo, that want ultimate connection with the water, with ultimate performance. And at the moment, the Spark is ultimate connection with the water for new gen, but it's not ultimate performance. And until we get that, I think we're all going to have to sacrifice and go to the bigger holes. Now, the final consideration to buying new, as much as we all hate to admit it, is riding two strokes is obviously epic, fun, lightweight, playful fun, which we all endorse and love. But as I've touched on, the bigger crafts obviously have more power, which is the first reason to endorse them. But the second reason, in particular with the GTR X, it actually has a lot of the features you'd expect to see on the higher performance crafts like the RXP, most notably the ergolock, the extendable stem, which excitingly, I've actually looked at the part numbers and you can actually use the Seadoo Spark riser. So in essence, you could have an even larger range of adjustability in that steering stem on a GTR. That coupled with things like that ginormous front box, obviously the link queue system, the ability to have the sound system, which as the years have gone on and seeing my dad have it, there isn't anything quite as cool as being on a beachfront and having an 80s song blaring full volume. Ask my dad how he felt about that happening when I did it on his. But the point I'm getting at here is there are things about new gen that if you endorse and you get on board with, just gives you an ability to have a ski that represents new and a ski that represents old. I think in the near future, I will end up using a double trailer so that on any given ride, I can take an old gen two-stroke for my lightweight playful fun when I want to spin it around and jump nose wave and get maximum air. And then a larger ski for when I want to go long distance and keep pace with the likes of an RXT or an ST3 hull. So guys, put in the comments what you guys think. Let me know if you've looked at the GTR X, your thoughts on it, if you think that it could be a good substitute until we get a faster Spark X. Also, let me know what you think about the Spark X, where we think we're gonna get the Spark X. And as always, guys, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the like button. Your support really does help grow the channel. I know I say it all the time, but without you guys watching the videos and supporting, I ultimately can't do this, and I really appreciate your support. And as always, although this is a new video, the sign off has got to be keep the classics alive.